Hey guys, Level Cap here, and welcome to This Week in Gaming, your weekly news recap on everything going on in the world of video games. This week, AMD finally gave us a ray of hope in the GPU availability dystopia. Warner Brothers basically killed one of gaming's most influential studios. Valve is up to something big and much more. AMD has finally announced pricing, availability, and specs for their upcoming RX 9000 series GPUs. The RX 9070 and the RX 9070 XT will launch in the second quarter this year for $549 and $599. And while that's not the sub $500 quote-unquote budget price that PC gamers might have been hoping for, it's still a much cheaper price than Nvidia's current lineup. They're also promising a wide availability of their GPUs, backed apparently by them shipping supplies to retailers for months already. The limited availability of Nvidia's GPUs has led to skyrocketing prices that makes their MSRPs seem laughable. Hopefully AMD's supply chain holds up. As for what these new GPUs offer in terms of performance and features, they will likely compete very directly with Nvidia's RTX 5070 and 5070 Ti, while claiming a 20 to 24% improvement over AMD's previous generation. The new GPUs will also support AMD's FSR resolution upscaling and frame generation technology, which should provide a noticeable leap in image quality. AMD also claimed these GPUs will boast an improved media engine that supports H.264, HEVC, and AV1 video encoding at up to 8K 80 FPS with no limit on the number of simultaneous encoding sessions. That might not be a big headline for gamers, but it's still good to see that AMD are making improvements that will help in the workflow for other users. As for ray tracing, they've expanded the physical hardware used to run that tech, and it should hopefully result in some big improvements depending on the game. Of course, all of AMD's claims should be taken at face value until we get the hardware in our hands, or rather in reviewers' hands. Third-party reviews will be out shortly to check in on these claims. All that said, it'll be interesting to see how AMD fares against Nvidia. Nvidia's biggest problem right now is high demand and not enough supply. These new GPUs seem to be priced pretty competitively, and if the supply holds up, they could be in a good spot to take back some of that market share. Warner Brothers has closed 3 major game studios, including one responsible for some incredibly innovative and influential titles. Player First Games and Monolith Productions all closed their doors this week as part of a strategic change of direction by their parent company. Monolith are well regarded for their FPS action title Fear and the recent Lord of the Rings games Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. Apparently, Monolith in particular has had several years of setbacks and delays getting multiple titles into full production. They had spent 6 years developing a Wonder Woman game, including a full engine switch to Unreal, and had basically just entered pre-production on the game before the studio was shut down. The full story hasn't been clarified yet, but it sounds like these issues were a systemic problem compounded by Warner Brothers' insistence on developing live service titles. Hopefully we get a better understanding as former employees give interviews explaining what happened. This is all following the incredible commercial failure of 2 Warner Brother titles. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League by Rocksteady Games and the Smash Bros. Inspired Melee Brawler Multiverses from Player First Games. Both games were positioned as massive live service titles but bombed commercially. Suicide Squad in particular resulted in a $200 million loss for the studio, and Multiverses has been cancelled and will go offline in May. Valve has just dropped their biggest update yet for their still technically unreleased but playable hero shooter Deadlock. The game is a hybrid MOBA hero shooter that is currently available via invites shared by players. The latest update radically transformed the game's map, turning it from a 4-lane design into a 3-lane one. This has brought sweeping balance changes with it, alongside tons of quality of life improvements and bug fixes. Deadlock is still very much an unfinished and in development title, but it's remarkable how polished and engaging it is already. In other Valve news, it sounds like Half-Life 3 might be in the final stages of development according to leaks and speculation based on data mining of the latest update for Dota 2. Info buried in the update suggests that Valve are currently optimizing the game in preparation for release with stuff like NPC AI, getting performance scaling that should help improve FPS when playing the game. This is a big deal, and it's rumored one of Half-Life 3's killer features will be an advanced dynamic AI system with NPCs that naturally react to basically anything and everything you do. There's also rumors suggesting that the game will feature a robust physics system with materials having the ability to burn and freeze realistically. Other data found in the Dota 2 update suggests Valve recently implemented AMD's FSR3 technology in the upcoming game. Often, some of these graphics features tend to come towards the end of production, but that's not to say that this confirms any sort of release date inbound. As much as these rumors seem to indicate that we might be close to some sort of Half-Life 3 announcement or release, I certainly wouldn't be putting my money on it just yet. Monster Hunter Wilds might have mixed reviews on Steam, but it's already racked up over 1 million concurrent players following its release this week. That's more than double the previous Monster Hunter game's peak player counts combined. But if you read the player reviews on Steam, it's kind of a curious success story. Apparently, the game is plagued by severe performance issues. Previous beta tests for the games seem to have run better than the live build does, according to some players. Hopefully, that means there's tons of room for optimizations to be made. As many as 32 voice actors working on the French localization of Battle Royale Apex Legends have quit following a contract update that demands they consent to AI being trained on their performances. Most of these voice actors have been working on the game since its launch in 2017, and there's also currently a strike happening with US actors under the SAG unions over generative AI concerns. One of the French voice actors said in an interview that we aren't simply asked to work, we are asked to give up our expertise to train generative AI that will replace us tomorrow. Many studios have come under fire recently for relying on AI. Notably, the finals used it for their announcers, and Call of Duty recently admitted to using it for in-game artwork. It's tough to say how these issues will end up getting resolved, but it just seems like a matter of time before they reach a breaking point. 4A Games Ukraine, who helped develop the Metro franchise, recently rebranded as Reburn and announced their first new title, La Chimera. It's a sci-fi FPS title that is very clearly born of the same DNA as the Metro games, with lushly detailed post-apocalyptic environments and homebrewed weapons. The game's narrative was written by Nicholas Winding Refn, who directed cult hits like Drive and The Neon Demon. The game doesn't have a release date yet. In our final story this week, Splitgate 2's open alpha is live and the reviews seem to be positive. The game is a direct sequel to the original Splitgate, which basically started life as a college project for the developers and ballooned into an overnight hit that got so popular that they couldn't afford the servers to run it. The sequel builds on the original's Portal meets Arena FPS combat with a new multi-team mode that pits 24 players across 3 teams against each other on massive maps. There's also a new class system with unique gadgets and abilities, and while these are big departures from the original game's small-scale arena shooter-centric design, it sounds like players are ultimately embracing the game as a logical evolution of what made it so much fun in the first place. Also, the first game got incredibly popular very quickly and then didn't retain any players, so it seems like a change up in the formula should hopefully help this problem. And that wraps it up for today's episode of This Week in Gaming. Don't forget to drop me a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content like it. Up next, check out my video on Arma Field, a Battlefield mod in Arma. It's actually pretty darn cool. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.